Greetings. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Nuanced Conversation podcast. My name is George Hurt. I am the creator, curator, and host of this podcast space where we have created where people can have a conversation surrounding politics, religion, pop culture, and social norms with one caveat: that is intelligent, that is nuanced, honest, empathetic, active listening, and to be able to dive into various topics today. We try to have people here that meet that criteria, and we've done it today. We have the one and only, when describing the work that she is doing, and you'll learn more about that as a pastor, as our leading Baptist church in Los Angeles. And you'll find out why I say that in a second. Not just that, but formerly trained in the area of law. And as you know, being a woman in ministry and pastoring, that journey had its slopes for various and obvious reasons as well. And we want to dig into all that. Before we do so, here at the Nuanced Conversation podcast, we always swear our guests in at the beginning. So we're going to swear you in now that you will be honest and open and intelligent.
This is where I raise my hand.
Yeah, this is where you raise your hand. This is a lawyer here because she understands these nuances.
This is bringing my courtroom experience back.
Yes. All right. So, you're sworn in. That's good. Okay. That's good. Thank you for doing that with us. Thank you.
No problem.
Thank you for coming. How you doing today?
I am doing fine. I am excited about being here. I was surprised. You had mentioned about you wanted me to come on, but I was excited to get the invitation.
Absolutely. We try not to mention stuff and not follow up with it if it's in our control. But certainly we're excited to have you here. A long overdue conversation and interaction in general, but to do it on this platform, I'm excited about that. Tell us a little bit about your upbringing, just family life and the early years of Dr. Sonja Dawson.
Well, let's see. Born and raised in Compton, Compton, California, and I'm a PK my whole life. My parents founded the new Mount Calvary Baptist Church of Los Angeles, California. We were founded during the Watts riots, so gives you some timeline. It was in the early 1960s, and I grew up at my church. As far as outside of church, I did take the path of becoming an attorney. That was my desire. I actually wanted to be a judge. Yeah. That was always my ultimate career goal. But I served as an attorney for 20 years for the city attorney's office for the city of Los Angeles. I went to school at UC Irvine, so I'm an anteater. And then I went to USC, fight on. I have a master's in public administration from there, which I used in my first career, which was human resources management. Okay. So I did that for 12 years for the city of Los Angeles while going to law school at night. Finished law school, stayed with the city, and became a prosecutor in the city attorney's office. And I did that for 20 years. And then I was able to leave and retired so that I could do ministry full time. Wow. I started preaching 20 years ago. Last year. It's been 20 years, and pastoring for 13 years. So it's been a ride. It's been busy, but it's been fulfilling.
Wow, what an efficient recap of your life. I mean, that was amazing. I was like, you got everything in there. So we got to go all the way back and take the slow road here. Let's start with Compton, city of Compton. I'm from Detroit, so there's a perception that comes with Compton as it relates to NWA, rap music. But also there was a pre-Compton that we know now, is being gentrified as we speak as well. Yes. What was Compton like for you growing up? What was the demographics like? What was the socioeconomic status like? What was just the social realities of Compton as you grew up?
So we're talking about the 70s and the 80s. For me, it was middle class.
Middle class, that's what I thought.
Two-parent, for the most part, two-parent homes. We walked to school. I know nobody can believe that people actually open their door and just let their children out. Yeah. and then you walked home. Parents worked. So for me, growing up in Compton during that time, of course you had some issues, but it's not like it was played out in the media.
It's a middle class family
for the most part.
Adjacent city to Los Angeles.
Yes.
Southern adjacent.
Yes.
Yeah. Family life, you say your parents, mom and dad, are they working? When does ministry comes involved with them? And what led to, I know you said it happened during the Watts riot.
Yes.
What sparked starting the church where you now serve as pastor?
So my parents are originally from North Carolina, and they came here. They married here, and they were working both for the city of Los Angeles.
They both was from North Carolina? Mm-hmm. Did they move to LA together?
They did.
But wasn't married. They got married in LA after moving here.
They got married actually in Arizona.
Okay. On the way here?
On the way here.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Was that planned?
Yes. That
Really?
was planned. My dad got out the service,
Uh-huh.
and he wanted to get married and move to California. They were in
And
their
what branch was he
teens.
in?
He was in the Navy.
Okay, I was in the Navy too.
And
Okay.
so my mom said she would go, but they had to get married, of course.
Okay.
And so they got married on the way here.
Wow.
Yeah,
And they
and that
planned to
was-
stop in Arizona.
Yep.
Get married, and when they come here, they just get a job.
Yeah, they were able to get jobs. We're
Yeah.
talking the 50s, right?
Okay.
So they were able to get jobs. They were able to get an apartment. People helped one another.
Right.
So they were young, married couple. People helped them to get established.
Siblings are you the only child?
I have a sister.
A sister?
It's just two of us. I have an older sister, Sherry, and she still works with me in the ministry.
Oh,
She's a
wow.
retired school principal.
Oh, wow.
So as an educator, she's been extremely helpful in the work that she does. So then my parents, they were just here living life and wanted to get back in church. And so actually one of my mother's, I think it was my mother's coworker, invited them to the Holy Chapel Baptist Church. They didn't have a car. They were young. The first time that this coworker came to pick them up, they were sleeping in because they had partied the night before. And so they missed it. So this is a good lesson on evangelism.
Yeah.
So the coworker came back the next Sunday and picked them up again.
Wow.
And, they were reconnected with the church and with God because they grew up in church, in the South. And they started serving in their local church. And my dad got the call, and my mom didn't want to go. And,
She didn't want to go where?
She wasn't really ready for the pastoring thing. My grandfather was a pastor.
Got you.
So she thought she got
Maternal
far away
or
from that.
paternal
Her
grandfather?
dad.
Her dad was a
Yeah.
pastor. Okay.
So she didn't see that one coming. And anyway.
So she was fine with him preaching.
She was fine with him preaching.
And he was preaching, associate minister, Holy
Yes,
Chapel, and the
yes.
Lord led him to start his own ministry.
To organize. Mm-hmm.
And what sparked the organization?
He just said he felt the call of the Lord to organize.
Wow.
And so he, my father, the late Reverend Dr. Sonja Dawson, was he had crazy faith. Mm-hmm. I've never seen anything like it. He was a man of faith. He would step out on what God said, and that was it. And so we organized in 1962 out of the Holy Chapel Baptist Church, and then we became an official church in 1963. They started as mission churches back then.
Okay.
So church
Explain
started in
what
our
that
home,
means.
a mission church, kind of like what we would think of a Bible study now.
Okay, as church plant?
As a church plant.
Yeah.
As a church plant in the home. In our home, they were there for about 6 to 7 months, and they were able to raise enough money to get a building.
Yeah, so Holy Chapel, they're still under their jurisdiction.
No, it's more like a sister church.
Sister church,
Yeah.
okay. But per the pastor's approval.
Yes.
And so they start in their home. It expands. They get their own building.
Right.
Where are you at in life at this point?
I'm not here yet.
Oh, okay.
My sister's here. I love telling that part. But I'm almost here. I wish I could say it was a long time, but I'm on the way.
Okay.
I'm on the way. Yes, I was born and raised in the church.
Okay, so when you come along, growing up in the church, now your dad is the pastor.
Yes.
He's the founding pastor.
That's correct.
What's that like for you? Are you loving this experience? Are you like, I can't wait till I get grown and I'm never doing this again? How was that for you?
It depends on what day.
Yeah, okay.
Most of the time, I enjoyed working in the church and serving in the church.
Mm-hmm.
My father was not one to force us to go to things, and I think that was helpful.
Really?
I mean, it wasn't that you just stay at home. I don't want
Okay.
to make it sound like that,
Mm-hmm.
but it was not a compulsion. He wanted us to want to do.
Right.
So you going to church, but what do you want to do?
Got you. Going to
that
church.
kind of thing. You are going to church.
But being how involved you are, how connected you are. So
Right.
what did you get connected with first?
Oh gosh, choirs.
Choir,
little kitty choir.
Yeah,
And
everybody's first step, usher.
yeah, all the PK stuff. Mission.
Are you excelling academically in high school and junior high? Is that always something you excelled at?
I did pretty well in school.
Oh, that's a humble brag, ladies and gentlemen. And so you go off to college?
Yes.
Immediately, and that's UC Irvine?
Yes.
How was that experience at UC?
It was a culture shock.
Really?
Well, all I knew was Compton. All I knew was South LA, and now I'm behind, I'm in Orange County, or what we would call behind the orange curtain. So it wasn't a bad thing, but it was just a very different thing.
Okay.
I'm glad that I had that experience of going to UC Irvine. It's an amazing school, but it was an adjustment being in a predominantly white institution. So, yeah.
And you're studying?
I studied psychology.
Psychology at that point.
Liberal
What do you
arts
do
degree.
after graduating from there?
I went to work for the city of Los Angeles, where my mother had worked and where she retired from, and she helped me to get
nepotism
in.
going
Yeah,
on there.
well, you got to take your test.
Yeah, okay.
That's the good thing about the city. You got to take your test.
Got to take your test.
I took my test. I got my name on the list.
Okay.
Then after that, maybe she helped me out a little bit. I don't know.
Now, what did you do for the city?
Personnel management.
Where is church in all of this?
Church is still going on. I'm maybe working with the young adult ministry at this point, leader of the young adults.
You feeling
like
late?
that.
Any call in ministry at this point? Off your radar?
I knew from the time I was a teenager that the Lord had called me to ministry.
How did you know that?
I had a feeling of the Holy Spirit. I heard the voice of the Lord in the way that I understood him at that time. And so I felt that I was called to do something significant in the church.
Wow. Did you tell your dad?
No, because I did not. I don't believe I had the tools at that time to articulate what that was.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
But I just knew that there was something I'm going to do here that's going to be significant. I'm going to be a leader of some kind, Wow. And so, yeah, I was a teenager. So by young adults, I was just working, I was operating in that. I was just leading.
Excelling in academics, getting this big money from the city, working in the church, I did pretty well.
Started really low.
That, ladies and gentlemen. And so you're working in the church. Since you're a teen that God is calling you to do something significant in the church. You have not put a framework of what that means in totality. At what point does the pressure for the ministry and the call of ministry take place?
And as a fellow pastor, though, that's the best way to put it, the pressure.
Yeah.
When you can run no longer.
Yes. Yeah.
And you staying up at night and you wondering and you like, is this God? Is it not God? And all that kind of stuff. So I want to say the pressure started probably in my early 30s. I'm still working at the church, still working my regular job. I'm in school now because I'm working
at USC.
I finished that. I'm in law school now.
Oh, so you finished at public administration pretty fast, and now you're still working. You're selling your GS employee. No, you're for the city.
I'm for the city.
Yeah, and then let's go to law school. What was the decision? What was the decision for law school? What was the passion that drew you there?
It was just I always wanted to be a judge, as I mentioned.
Right.
And so you got to be a lawyer first. And so I was in law school, and I felt like that was something I really wanted to do. And the Lord opened the door. I was able to do that. But I still knew in the back of my mind that I was going to do significant things, as I put it, in ministry. But now in the 30s, it's starting to become more like, maybe you're going to be a preacher.
Late 20s, you go to law school. And that's USC as well?
No, Southwestern.
Southwestern. Okay, Southwestern Law. Okay, yep. And once you graduate there, you just take on another role with the city?
Yes.
And what role was that?
Deputy city attorney for the city of LA.
And that sounds significant. Like, Like,
It does.
Yeah, it does. Like,
It's just the
no.
entry level title. That's all. That's all it is.
No.
Trust me. Anybody who watches this will tell you, oh, that's the entry level title.
It could be entry level, but there's not anything is going across the desk of the deputy. I can't remember. It's so powerful. But so all that was interesting to me. Like, usually, like when it comes to the call of ministry, it's usually these dramatic stories of somebody trying to find themselves and nothing's connecting, nothing's really happening. But you're excelling academically, professionally. You're excelling in church context.
Yeah, I was busy.
And so, when does the shift happen where it's like you're almost cornered, like, oh, or, God's saying, that's great, you went to law school, that's great. You haven't told your dad, your pastor yet, it's great that you working for the city, doing your thing as deputy, attorney for the city. When does you feel the hourglass is like running out of time here? The sand is coming down and you gotta make a decision. You gotta follow God's lead.
Oh, I drug it out. So I want to say we're in the mid-30s now. Mm-hmm. We're in the mid-30s, and I don't need anybody doing all this math on me.
No, but what?
But in the mid-30s.
Yeah, people cut all that out.
Yeah, don't do this math.
Yeah.
But I want to say in the mid-30s.
I got your back. You will not do that. Our guest here at the Nuance Conversation.
I will say that I got to a situation where I really believed the Lord had called me to preach, and that I was no longer able to do these other things instead of acknowledging the call to preach. Now, if you're asking me the question, did the heavens open up and, all this? No, I just knew that because of the pressure and because I had done all these other things was not what...
Lack of contentment.
Yeah, these other things was not what God really wanted me to do. And that I was supposed to be preaching. And it was just at a point where I had to say, okay, God, yes, I will preach. And that was that. That was 20 years ago. What was
that? What was those steps to acceptance?
Well, the acceptance, first of all, was accepting it myself. Because as you pointed out, I wasn't just sitting on a lump somewhere not doing anything.
Right. No, that's the point I try to make. It's like, Lord, leave me alone. I'm doing stuff.
Yeah. And a lot of it was, well, I'll do this, but I don't want to preach.
Yeah.
I'll run this ministry. I'll handle all the administration. I'll do, you have what we used to call people who preach but didn't preach. I won't use that derogatory term, but I'll be a theme speaker. I'll do all these various things. But
you're doing that in local churches and stuff?
Sure, you're doing all that. But I don't want to, don't call me, don't give me that handle, don't give me that label. I don't want to have a title, et cetera, et cetera.
So the steps of you accepting your call. Yes. First, you have to.
Yes, I acknowledged it myself. I had to acknowledge it myself. I had to pray about it and say, okay, Lord. And then ask the Lord, how should I proceed? And so the Lord led me to go to my father and to share with him the call to preach that I felt all my life. And so because there was no role model in my context, there were no women preachers in my church. We didn't fellowship with any women pastors. My assumption was that I would not be able to stay at my church where I built all this great ministry.
So let's go back to that. Are you like, hey, Dad, I need to talk to you? Is it you're at home or you're in the office?
We're at home.
You're at his house. You came to his house, sat down, and what do you say to him?
Just what you said. I need to talk to you.
And then
I have something I need to share with you, and I'm nervous about it because I don't know how you're going to react. And as a father, I think that kicked in when he heard me say I was nervous. So it was more of a fatherly response, I think, than a pastoral. I think it was pastoral too, but I saw the expression on his face change when I said I was nervous. He was like, well, whatever it is, just tell me whatever it is. And I shared with him.
What was that expression to you?
Which expression? The
expression that came on his face. What did that expression?
Just concern. Like if you're, is everything okay?
Yeah.
Kind of thing. That's why I felt like it was more like fatherly.
Got you. Yes.
And I was like, no, everything is fine. I just have a sense that the Lord is calling me to preach. So he basically said, all right. Well, I want you, and this is what he did, and I've checked with all of his other associates. This was his pattern. Go pray about it. And go pray about it could be 6 months. It could be a year. Just go pray about it. And so he sent me off to pray, and he said, if you still sense this calling, come back to me in a few months and let me know, how you feel. The Lord's still speaking. So I did that, and I came back in a few months and said I still had that sense. And then he said, okay, now I'm going to go pray about it. And so that was another several months, but I found out later from his colleagues that during his time of prayer, he was also researching, talking to pastors across the country that he had relationships with about women in ministry, about bringing women into your church if you don't have women in ministry and pulpit ministry, what that looks like, how they had navigated that space, and getting recommendations as far as how to do that.
So there never been even his thought of having a woman in ministry before that?
Yes, there had.
Oh, okay.
Yes, there had. In fact, the Lord was already working in that area in his life, and in conversations with him, because they were from North Carolina, and so a lot of his friends and pastor friends were on the East Coast, and he would talk about going to revivals and conferences and things like that. And he's like, I was sitting pulpits with women all the time on the East Coast, so he found it strange that when he came to the West Coast, it wasn't open.
Okay.
And for him, he felt conflicted. So the Lord has started already working on his heart.
And so when he finally comes back, what does he say to you after his time of prayer?
That he's going to move forward, that he doesn't want me to leave. He's not going to give me a letter. Because I asked for my letter.
You really?
Oh, yeah. I was bold.
How did that make you feel?
I didn't want to go. I didn't want to leave.
No, how did it make you feel for your dad to say, yes, let's go forward. I'm about to walk you through this process.
It felt wonderful. Scary, but wonderful.
Yeah.
I didn't want, and let me say this, I did not want my letter because I wanted to leave. I never wanted to leave. I grew up in that church. That's all I knew.
You didn't want to cause confusion.
I did not want to hurt him.
Yes.
I didn't want to hurt his reputation. I didn't want to cause confusion. He had already built a great ministry. He's in his 70s, right? So I did not want whatever the repercussions would be on him.
Gotcha.
I thought it would be easier if I just go somewhere else and live out this call.
What is those early years of ministry like? What was the first sermon like? The build up, the day.
The first sermon. My first sermon after I acknowledged my call to preach was actually at another church. In retrospect, I'm glad that I was able to have it at my church as well.
What does that mean?
What that means is that God does everything the way he wants to do it. I think that first opportunity, which I'm very grateful for, and I'm thankful for those who are still in relationship with me, who gave me that opportunity. Maybe God used that to break the ice.
So you announce in Mount Calvary, New Mount Calvary, your call. Everybody starts clapping.
Yeah, they were clapping. They were, clapping, shocked, clapping.
And so now usually you schedule first sermon after knowledge of the call, but yours happened somewhere else. Why did it happen somewhere else?
Well, it wasn't scheduled immediately because, again, remember, we're praying, and there are other women, 3 exactly. I was in a cohort of 4. So we all had to be scheduled together. We all came through the training class together, and we all preached our sermon. So that took a little time. In the interim, if you recall, I'm theme speaking, right? And so I got an opportunity
to preach post being accepting your call publicly.
But prior to my trial sermon at my church.
Prior to your trial sermon. Got you. But your official trial
my
sermon.
My official trial sermon was at the Mount Calvary Baptist Church.
At the Mount Calvary Baptist Church.
In October of 2020, in October 2003.
And how was that?
Surreal.
Yeah.
Surreal.
What's ministry like post that night, that day? Was it a night service?
Oh yeah, Wednesday night service.
A lot of people came out from around the city.
Came. I had some people came from out of town, from out of state. Family, close family members.
What you preaching on, Rev?
I know. Ecclesiastes 3. It's a time and a season for all things. That was what I talked about.
What did you call it?
Now.
The time is now. Get out of my way, y'all.
Yeah.
Time is now.
Humble.
Yeah. Real proud of your humility, huh? And then is it just being involved in ministry at this point? Working, being more involved in the church? Do you go on staff eventually? Eventually,
but it was a minute.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a minute before that part. As far as any type of paid staff, it was always volunteer. So I was leading the women's ministry. Well, my mother was in charge of the ministry. I was the minister to the women's ministry. So I was over the. You
didn't think you was gonna be over Mama, now did you?
No, not at all. Right. Not at all. I was under her, and I was in charge of the congregational care.
Gotcha.
Visiting the sick, that kind of that was what I was working on. Still working with the other areas of ministry, working with the associates with training. I did a lot of work with my father with training. I started a parachurch organization around the same time that I started preaching, and that took up a lot of my time.
What was that, and what was that about?
It's the name of it, and it still exists. It's called Sisters in Ministry. And we are an organization, an interdenominational fellowship for women clergy and those who support women clergy.
So I can't join.
Yeah, I just said, you don't support women clergy?
Oh, no. I thought you said
I said for those
I'm trying to start something and I'm not listening. Yeah.
It's okay for women clergy and those who support women clergy.
Got you.
But it's not just for clergy. We also have women in any areas of ministry. So if you're... a praise and worship leader, if you're a Sunday school teacher, any type of women leading.
Gotcha.
Sisters in Ministry is an organization that we get together once a quarter. We have different events. We have conferences. We do outreach. We do training classes. What else have we done? Mentoring. So we do a lot of different things. Coming together just to encourage and support women in ministry.
If I remember the catalog right, so at this point you are still working for the city as a lawyer. You're just helping out more at the church. You're starting the para ministry. How does the pastoring component?
The pastoring piece.
Yes.
So the para ministry, which I didn't know then, actually really helped to prepare me for pastoring. Because it was basically like learning. It's a 501c3, learning all the ins and outs of that, learning how to deal with people and personalities and organization and all these various things. So we have that going on, that organization going on, working with that. The pastoring piece. When is the pastoring piece? Now that did have a dramatic experience. And I guess that was because God knew he was going to have to say something to me. So I can recall being an adjutant, serving my dad, doing all these various things. And my father was starting to experience different sicknesses. He had some health challenges. He had a stroke. He had some different things to happen. So I was taking on more responsibility administratively. Although not formally on staff. I'm helping him.
Yeah.
So, but at that time, and you know, you've been in the church world, so you know kind of how when pastors get sick, sometimes people rise up, things change, people change.
Yeah.
And so my heart was pricked about what I was seeing. And I can remember waking up one morning with just tears streaming down my face. And it was like I was saying, yes, Lord, I'll help him. And for me, that was a dramatic experience.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew it was the Lord, the Spirit of the Lord, because I kept saying, I'm going to help hold up his arms. That's all I was saying. I just woke up saying, I'm going to help hold up his arms.
Dad is getting older. Because of that, people are doing things that they would never did before if he was at his full strength. And you are able to discern that and know that, hey, I'm equipped to step in and help out to make sure this doesn't happen. But there was a sense of reluctancy. I guess we could trace that throughout your story.
Sure.
As it relates to ministry. Mm-hmm. And you have this sort of coming to Jesus moment one morning where it's, I'm going to step up. Now, what does stepping up mean at that point?
At that point, I thought it was, I'm just going to help out more, you know, after work. Mm-hmm. I'm going to keep my job.
Yeah.
But I'm just going to help out more. And, you know, if he needs me to preach more and visit the sick more so he doesn't have to try to, you know, don't do that in the evenings. I just thought I was going to do more of what I was already doing.
Right.
Being more available, you know, being more watchful, that kind of thing. And let me say this, because I never want anybody to, you know, interpret it as though that people were being horrible in any kind of way, because a lot of these folks are still my members.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm not saying that. I'm just saying anybody that's been around knows
Absolutely.
how things and people can change.
Absolutely.
Okay. So, nevertheless, I just thought I was going to be doing more. Just more. And that's what I was prepared for, to do more and continue doing what I was doing.
What actually happened then?
What actually happened?
Yes.
Yes. So what actually happened was, fortunately, my father was diagnosed with fatal illness. And when we all, you know how they called the family in, and we went in to have the meeting with the doctors, and they didn't have much good to say.
Wow.
At that juncture, we met as a family and talked about kind of how we were going to navigate this space. And so my dad asked if he could appoint me as his executive pastor while he was in treatment. Mm-hmm. And of course, the Lord had already pricked my heart to say yes. Mm-hmm. You know, so he made the appointment before the church. That was the first time we'd ever had a female executive pastor, a pastor of any kind. Mm-hmm. And so while he was undergoing that treatment, I did more. He still, though, did a lot, which I didn't even realize until I started actually pastoring. That he
did more than just preach on Sunday.
He was still carrying a lot. I don't even know how he did it, to tell you the truth. He was still carrying a lot of the day-to-day responsibilities. And you know what? He had an amazing staff. Mm-hmm. They had been with him for many, many years. And I believe they were picking up a lot and helping out a lot as well. Mm-hmm. It wasn't just me. He had an amazing team.
You're executive pastor. What does that mean?
It means that I'm organizing the preaching schedule. I'm not doing all the preaching. I am overseeing most of the administration as far as, like, you know, church business meetings, getting information out, things like that. I am making sure whatever's on his desk that he needs to see, that I bring it to him and take it back. I am meeting the trustees and the major stakeholders and attending some of those meetings and learning about, you know, the inside workings of the finances.
Are you afforded the privilege to breathe the reality of this at this point? Or are you so involved in work, it never really hits you? Like, I'm really operating as pastor now under the title of executive pastor. Mm-hmm. Or is the work so busy that you never have that moment to sort of maybe even still not have the moment to kind of soak in the reality of What the implications of everything that's taking place?
I want to say that I did, but I don't know if I did.
Gotcha.
The reason I say that is, even though all of this was going on with the church, I still have a sick father.
Yes.
So there was not really a lot of time to think about. To me, this was all one thing. Like, this was how I was caring. This was a part of my caregiver. It's hard to explain it, but I think I put it all together.
I got you.
Yeah.
I'm following. Not sure if the audience is, because they're not as, crafty as I am. There's no fault of their own. But no. If I could sort of put it in a nutshell, you're not just helping out a pastor in a time of illness. You're helping out a pastor that's your dad.
Right.
In this time. And so there's really not a lot of space to breathe, celebrate, for lack of better terms, everything that has taken place. How I think it's important now to ask the question throughout even this process and the entire journey in ministry at this point is being a woman, being in Los Angeles. Okay. What's the realities? What's the nuance as it relates to that experience?
Sure. It's hard. It's hard. And it's hard for a long time.
What made it hard?
I can't say lack of opportunity, because I'm still the daughter of a successful,
legendary pastor. Yeah.
So people are going to invite me to preach, or some did, right? You're going to get those opportunities that others would not get.
Mm-hmm.
So I can't sit here and say, no doors were open for me. That's not true. But open doors are not always a blessing.
Mm-hmm. Go on and say that one more time. Somebody in the back might not have heard you.
They're not always a blessing. And the places where you end up may appear welcoming, but not necessarily be welcoming. And so when I say it was hard, sometimes it was hard to hold my peace.
What were some of the things that occurred that was difficult?
Well, you got to deal with the comments, the ignorance, the lack of respect. It just made it challenging, and it made it to just stay on your A game. It's kind of like I tell when I mentor through Sisters in Ministry, I tell the ladies all the time, there's a black tax and then there's a woman tax, and so you got to pay them both. Yeah. Whatever that may be, or whatever your minority, whatever your demographic is. So it made it very difficult and challenging at first, and there's still challenges. We haven't gotten to the pastoring piece yet. I'm just talking about the preaching piece.
Yeah, no. That's I want to get into that separately.
Yeah.
Tell me, for you personally, even I know you said you felt the calling as a teen. Was there ever a component where you felt like women shouldn't have been in ministry? And then if so, what was the transition from that?
So my answer to that is no, because I have a justice bend. Even in my work that I did as a prosecutor, I ended up creating a diversion program for first-time offenders because I feel I'm very interested in restorative justice and equality.
What's restorative justice?
Basically giving people an opportunity to restore themselves if they make a mistake, that we just don't write them off. We give them another opportunity. We let them take classes, or we let them make amends to the victim, or do something and not just throw them away by incarcerating them forever. So I said that to say, because of my justice being, I always felt it was fine for women to do whatever women wanted to do. I felt we were equal, So I never had to convince myself that because I was a woman, I shouldn't preach. I had to convince myself that for everything that I've seen as a PK and the sacrifices that you make, do I want to do this for the rest of my life?
As a
male or
period.
female?
As a preacher, period.
Yes, that's my reluctance.
Yeah.
It's not the female piece.
When in this journey do you if you ever did that idol, that be it from up close or from a distance, as a woman that you look to?
Role models?
Yeah.
Sure. And my parents connected me to my first mentor in ministry, Pastor Carol Houston. And she's well known here in the city of LA and probably all over. But Pastor Carol Houston of the Bethel Unspeakable Joy Church became my mentor when I first started preaching. What
about before then? Did you ever look to somebody as, hey?
Oh, I mean, we can look on TV. You got your Carolyn Showells, your Jacqueline McCullough. And you've got, Bishop I own a lot, and if I don't use their titles, it's not disrespect. I'm just talking.
No, so I'm just saying, what I'm trying to understand is, like, for you to have the restorative justice being that you always felt that way, was that combined with also seeing others? You know how they say you see somebody do something makes you more, feeling and motivated to do it yourself, or to feel like you can do it yourself.
Maybe.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. But not consciously per se.
No.
So you're back in this. One quick question before we go there. As it relates to always, what was your conversations like with people? Let's just say incognito, in a sense. You're not preaching yet, but did you ask, or even your father, what do you feel about women in ministry? Like, were there conversations being had?
Oh, no.
No. Mm-mm. So you just had this inclination, but you never verbalized it or advocated for it in any way formally.
I just knew it.
You just knew it.
I knew it for me.
Right.
And I knew if I went, I wasn't taking any public opinion polls.
Yeah.
If I talk to you, you can talk to everybody. Everybody has a different opinion about it, what they think you should do, what you think you shouldn't do. To me, it wasn't up for discussion. I felt like God had said it, and I was going to figure out some kind of way to do it, and I was going to have to do it because I felt he had called me to it.
But just even in general, not even thinking through the lenses of yourself, did you ever have those conversations in general growing up or with other people?
I didn't.
No. Okay. So you're doing more and more responsibilities as executive pastor. When does a transition happen from executive pastor to full-time or senior pastor?
So as my father's condition declined, and we knew that he was going to, transition, then the church put things in place so that he would be able to name his successor as the founding pastor. And so once that was put in place, then they asked me if I would be willing to serve as their next pastor.
That was your dad's recommendation?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And so they took the recommendation and asked you.
And I said I would. And so then they brought it to the church, and that was affirmed by the church, and that was it. And then my dad passed 6 weeks after that action.
What's the time frame before that of all this happening?
You mean of me being executive pastor?
Yeah, him making a recommendation, him accepting the recommendation, and voting. What was that span of time was? So
it happened within the 6-week period.
Before the 6 weeks.
During that 6 weeks. So he makes this recommendation.
All that happened within the 6 weeks.
All of that happened.
I got you. Yeah. Yeah. So now you're in this oxymoron where a moronic space where can't really celebrate this new position because it's at the pains of your dad. How are you handling it then? Are you throwing yourself into work? Do you take a moment to grieve as well? And then what would you recommend to somebody that's in that similar position?
Gosh.
Yeah.
I'm chuckling now, but yes, I should have taken a break. Yes. If I had it to do over, sure. That's absolutely what I would recommend for somebody to do.
But that's not on you though. Like, why?
But I was getting ready to say why I couldn't have taken the break, and why I still probably wouldn't have taken that if I had it to do over. Wouldn't have taken that break.
Why is that?
Because you're transitioning a church. You're transitioning a church. You're transitioning a grieving church who had only one pastor for almost 50 years. So absence was not an option.
Mm-hmm.
And my father explained, we talked about that as he was even close to his transition.
Mm-hmm.
He was very clear on what the transition plan should be and that there would be no void in leadership. So I knew that from the time that he went home to be with the Lord, I would be preaching every Sunday up to the installation. And then after that, if I wanted to, take any breaks, use any associates or whatever, that would be as the Spirit led. And so that's what I did.
Why do you think he was so dogmatic about that?
Stability.
And do you, in retrospect, feel like that was correct?
I do, for our context.
For your context,
yeah.
Why do you feel that way?
Because we are still, and we're then, a stable church.
Mm-hmm.
So
I'm asking that because I'm about to take a sabbatical. We've talked about this before, and I think there are some common practices in church, Black church especially, that seemingly in that situation, if we're talking about group love, congregation, family, hypothetically, and I'm saying this, not trying to dive into the total context and trying to be respectful to your dad's wishes and even what you're saying now, it does still feel as if somebody should have said, our new pastor, who may have been our pastor for X Y, and Z, has been her dad her entire life. We should do something to make sure that this is a healthy transition process. And if anybody can't understand that, be it leader or member of the church, it's probably best that you move on anyway. And I know that's not.
No, and I can respond to that.
Yeah.
Because they did. Let me say that.
They did offer that to
you.
They
did. The leader of the deacon board and the leader of the trustee ministry, both of those gentlemen offered me to take a break. The church offered me and has offered me so many times.
So it's your fault.
It's my fault. Okay. Because of my training, because of how, No,
I think I would have been in the same boat. And I think I want to be clear, I'm not saying this from the mountaintop of how great I'm just as guilty, and I think we in general are just as guilty. And I don't even think guilty is a good word there, because that is not a malicious aspect to it in my mind. It's just something that is an internal training and an external training that needs to happen into these things for the overall. I mean, we preach it. It's the Lord's church,
right? Which is why I'm gonna find out more about the one you're taking, so I can take it next year. I'm ready now.
Yeah, you ready?
I'm 13 years in. I'm out. I'm gone.
Yes,
I'm gone.
Yes.
I told them at my anniversary in January, I'm gone.
Yes,
so I'm going to conferences this year. I'm getting out the house.
Yes.
So
yes.
Yeah.
I want that for you. I want that for all of us. I want that for our people in general, across the board. And I think a lot of times this happens, and you could tell me if I'm wrong and correct me if I'm wrong, with women a lot in general, especially Black women, is this hero complex is I got to take it on.
Sure.
I got to get it done. And there's a reason for it.
I got to prove the naysayers wrong.
Right. And
the odds were against you. When the odds are against you.
Got you. And so that probably has something to do with you as well, with that saying no. Yeah. This is the jump in and do things like that in nature.
Sure.
Phenomenal job you've done as a pastor over 13 years.
God be the glory.
Absolutely, but also to give you be the glory as well.
I like that. Thank you.
We give all the glory to God, but we do supplement that.
Yeah, there was some work.
As it relates to being disciplined, being focused, but most importantly, that I want to highlight and compliment you for is perseverance through everything that you would have to deal with throughout the journey, being a woman following your dad, caring for your dad through this time.
Yeah.
Tell us about the journey. I want to hear the highlights, though. I want to hear, just tell us how things begin to flourish under your leadership.
So Mount Calvary was ready to rally when I took over. Our church was ready for the future. Mm-hmm. While we still, of course, are a legacy church. You know, we do our traditions, we have our traditions, we honor our traditions. But they were in a position where they were open to new leadership. My leadership in particular, I should say, not just any new leadership. They were open to my leadership because I was recommended, grew up, they knew me, right? And they were willing to follow what I asked them to do, which was to be a praying church.
Wow.
So I started really focusing on the importance of prayer, holding during the pandemic, we held our prayer meetings weekly, but now we hold them twice a month. So that became a big part of our ministry. And from the prayer, we were always a Sunday school church.
When was this prayer taking place? What was the turnout like?
Well, first Mondays, every first Monday we were praying. We've had up to 200 people in prayer.
And what time?
Before the pandemic. It's at 7 o'clock at night.
7 o'clock at night.
Every first Monday. So we're rebuilding like everybody else. Mm-hmm. And our goal now every first Monday is to have 100 people in prayer. Mm-hmm. And so we're almost there, and then we'll move the goal up to 150, and then ultimately up to continue to going up. But the prayer meeting has been a really big thing, and not just the Monday night prayer. We also have prayer every day on the conference call. In the morning, I do a pastor's prayer time on Facebook and YouTube once a month.
What is that?
That's just where literally the members come on in the chat, and they give me their prayer requests.
And you pray for them.
And I pray for them in real time. Mm-hmm. I also have whatever teaching or whatever theme is for the night. It's usually focused around prayer. But they enjoy that. Wow. Hearing, telling me what it is that they want to pray about. And then other people start engaging in the chat and all of that. That's online. Mm-hmm. The in-person is on first Mondays. That's always in person, and that's not streamed. I don't stream when we're in person.
What time does your prayer on YouTube and
that's
Facebook
either
happen?
Well, it's at 6:30 now. It was at 7, but it's at 6:30. So
on what day?
First and third Mondays. Not first and third. Third Mondays.
Third Mondays.
First
Mondays you're meeting in person.
First Mondays I'm in person. This recently changed, but that's why I got to remember.
Yeah.
First Mondays in person, third Mondays online, and then I recently started a morning devotional that I do on Tuesdays at 9 a.m. And that's called Morning Inspiration. It depends on what we're talking about. So right now we're on the road to Pentecost. So I'm teaching on all the post-resurrection experiences and giving like a word of encouragement for the day.
Gotcha.
So I do that every week. So anyway, I think to answer your question, what has helped the church, I start with prayer and the commitment to discipleship. Now, as you know, and we talked about before, my father's legacy is Sunday school. He built a huge Sunday school department. We still have a very strong Sunday school department. We're still averaging over 200 people in Sunday school, which is a lot of people in Sunday school. So we're still working with that, trying to continue to help it to grow. One of the challenges that we have post-pandemic is getting people back in the building. Mm-hmm. Because now they're used to studying at home with their cup of coffee, and so we've had to keep some hybrid options for Sunday school just because of the age of the congregation. But that's an area where we're seeing some growth.
Wow. So commitment to prayer and focusing on that, doing those 13 years have caused that growth, and commitment to Sunday school. Before the pandemic, your Sunday school numbers were
closer to more like 300.
300. Mm-hmm. What's the construct of Sunday school?
You mean how is it organized? By ages? Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're by ages.
Okay, so give me an example. How many classes, ages?
I hope my Sunday school people are not.
Oh,
watching.
No, we don't do that. So, but you have an adult.
I can tell you. I think I got it. Yeah, I think I got it. I know it's about 20 classes. Okay. It may be more, so don't kill me, Sunday school directors. Maybe more than 20, but we have the preschool, the children, several adult classes, and we have the
junior high,
youth,
high school.
Yeah, the middle schoolers. So.
Your adult classes, are they demographic based or are they just first come, first serve who signs up?
It's a little bit of both. They started out as age based, but now we've opened them up. So if you have a teacher that you want to be with, a certain group of people that you like, we don't make you, you don't have to go to the other class. You can be in the class that you like.
How do you choose curriculum?
We use David C. Cook. So how do I choose it? I choose it because I do prefer an expository curriculum. And I like the David C. Cook curriculum. So we've been using that for a couple of years. Initially, we used Lifeway. We used a lot of topical sources, but I like the David C. Cook curriculum.
How do you get people to go to Sunday school? Those that are watching and say, hey, I would love that.
The Sunday school people get people to go to Sunday school. The members.
Got
and
you.
it is important that the pastor talks about it a lot. So I try to talk about Sunday school often. I try to preach from the Sunday school lesson from time to time, so that when you come in this past Sunday, for example, it just lined up that way, that my sermon was on the same text. And so I was able to partner, kind of talk about, your Sunday school teacher, they talked about it this way, and I see it from this angle, and, they see the connection. So it's not a separate thing, but the members are excited about it, and they invite their friends. And that's how we've seen growth.
What about the church? How did you sustain? What kind of growth did you see just in church in general? Let's say Sunday morning worship.
Over 13 years. Well, the honeymoon period, when I first started pastoring, it was just crowded.
Yeah.
It was just crowded. But
How
we
many
had
services?
two services at that time.
Yeah.
And the first, I want to say in the first 2 or 3 years, we maybe took in 600 new members.
Wow.
But the back door. So we've had to work to try to retain and find. And then the pandemic took care of that. So now we are seeing growth again. We have one service at 10:30. That service is pretty much full. So we have 2 services on first Sunday. I do the 7:30 service and the 10:30 service. And so I know that we will have to go ahead and pop back to another early service, and I know my early service people are excited to hear that. So that's probably coming down the pike real soon.
Let's talk about the back door. You mentioned that.
Yes.
We take in these members.
Yes.
People show up and they are interested.
Yes.
What do you think is responsible for the failure in assimilation?
That's a very good question, and I have been trying to figure it out myself for a long time. I can tell you the things that have worked when we have been successful. So what has worked when we have been successful is pastoral involvement. With everything that we have to do as pastors, it's hard to also have to teach the new member class, but that's successful.
So you're saying, when you say pastoral, you're saying you teach the new member class.
You
may have to edit that out.
I'm just saying, it's hard. It's another job. I don't do it all the time.
Yeah.
But if we talk about best practices.
Yeah.
That's been a best practice.
How long is your new member class?
It's 6 sessions.
6 sessions.
So I've done it a couple of different ways. I've done it in 6 weeks, and then I did like a super Saturday, and did an accelerated. I had breakfast, and then just like 4 hours, you're done.
Got you.
Yeah, I have found that when the pastor teaches, is very good at getting connection, getting to know the members, and they feel like they know you, and they stay and get involved. That's one of the best practices.
Fair enough.
Another best practice is, like I say, I don't always do it, but another best practice is when you do have a group that graduates, that finishes new members, is not letting them out into the general population, but now forming a cohort with them. I'm like a rookie class, and either doing additional teaching with them on maybe doctrinal, things. Now let's talk about what it means, the plan of salvation, or let's talk about whatever you want to talk about next. Developing a spiritual life, finding your spiritual gifts, whatever, but keeping them together. Or what we have done, it's another practice with that, is when you have a group that's finished with new members class, forming a Sunday school class of those persons, because they, even though it's only 6 weeks or 7 weeks or whatever, they have formed community. And now they're in a new church, and they just want to be just out there. And so that, they end up going out the back door.
So you don't fear that community will come against the new community and be like, hey, we class
Right.
05 such and such.
Well, people are people.
Yeah, right. No, I got you. No.
Yeah.
Some of the challenges over these last 13 years as pastor.
Let me look at it from a spiritual place first. Yeah. Spiritual place is the inner strength. The inner strength to carry the weight of the work. Requires, and people would say this, and I don't know if I understood it as much as I do now. You cannot preach from an empty cup. You can't minister out of emptiness. So it's making sure that I have some type of spiritual life that's separate from just preparing the Bible studies and all these various things. It's keeping myself at least half full or almost full so that I can do the ministry. That's been a challenge because of the time constraints, right? So that making that a priority every day is very important to being able to pastor from a spiritual perspective. Being bivocational. I was bivocational for 10 years.
Let's go back to the first one before we go to there, because I think you said so many things that were so important. One of the challenges was drawing on empty.
Yes.
And at times being at places where you're I got to do it because I'm the pastor. Right. But I'm not really spiritually at my apex.
Yep.
Thank you for sharing that first and foremost. If somebody's watching that's experiencing that as well, what would you say to them on how to navigate through that?
I think it's finding those things that ignited your spiritual passion and going back to those. For me, I love Bible study. Everybody will tell you that. They're like, oh, Pastor, we know you'd rather teach Bible study. I would rather teach a room of 10 people Bible study.
Yeah.
That's what I just love to do. That's my passion, more so than being on a big stage somewhere.
Got you.
If I you put me in a circle, I'm happy, right? So even though I didn't have a lot of time because, we did construction and I still have my mom to take care of and all these various things. I was still working. I started small Bible studies. And the reality is, Pastor, they were for me.
Wow.
I needed it. That's how it reignited me. So I would say, what is it that you enjoy doing that gets you excited spiritually? And then make time for that, and it'll help to get you built back up.
Yeah, that's
whatever that is.
Yeah, that's advice. That's good advice. You begin to talk about bivocational. That's important as well because most pastors are bivocational.
Yes.
How was that a challenge for you?
Well, I was bivocational for 10 years before I retired. Hallelujah. Thank you, Jesus. And it was by choice. My church was able for me. They wanted me, I'll put it like that, to consider. And for a season, I was part-time on my job, which that was the perfect blend. When I was able to work part-time there and full-time in the church and everything like that. But then, with these government jobs, the longer you are part-time, the longer you got to work. So that had to stop.
Okay. You've invested so many years. You're trying to get to your retirement.
Yeah,
you're too far to go ahead.
I'm too far in at this point.
Former military, I understand that for other people, even though I never got that far. But so you went back to full-time.
I had to go back to full-time so I could finish.
Your retirement goal, and you made it.
Yes.
And so, but that was difficult. There's so many pastors that are bivocational, and you all are heroes. Be very clear. The bivocational pastor that would dare, be it because they have to supplement income, or because in your case is a situation where it's just a fiduciary responsibility and wisdom to do so, is a lot. Just just take this space to talk to the bivocational pastor and how you were able to navigate through and what may be helpful for them.
Well, first thing I would say is give yourself grace. Nobody was meant to do all these jobs. It's physically, because I've talked to sometime, and they're like, well, I remember saying to myself, if I can just get a handle on my schedule, if I can just get a handle on my schedule, I'll be all right. And I need them to know you cannot get a handle on your schedule because nobody was meant to work completely different jobs, 40 hours a week, et cetera, et cetera. So it really comes down to give us this day our daily bread and saying, Lord, help me to accomplish what I need to accomplish today, whatever that is. And if I don't finish everything on this list, you're going to take care of it. It's learning the art of delegation. Now, I was in a different situation than a lot of bivocational pastors. Right. I had a staff.
Right.
And I was able to hire some folks that could work for me full time while I was working full time.
Tell us about your staff. What does it consist of?
Oh, I have an amazing team around me, and they've been with me. Most of them now have been with me at least 8 or 9 years. A lot of them are college educated, graduate level degreed, so that allowed me to stay on my job. And when I came in at night, I had people who could run the ship.
What positions do you have on staff?
I have now I have an executive minister, Reverend Beaver. I have an administrative minister, Minister Hogan. I have a congregational care director. And these are all positions under my pastorate. I have a media specialist, digital media specialist. I have a director of ministries. And, of course, we have our finance person. Trying to make sure I didn't miss any positions. And then we have volunteers.
Volunteers?
Yes.
Wow.
And high-level volunteers. I sought out as our members would retire.
Retirees, yeah, you got to get them.
I created a core of high-level volunteers.
Got you. Yeah, a high-level volunteer means?
Meaning that these are people who were at management level on their jobs before they retired.
And so now they're volunteering a certain amount of hours a week, or is responsibility-based?
Both.
Okay.
Yeah, both.
Other challenges, bivocational, spiritual challenges, inner spirit, and then what were some other challenges?
Trying to think. Well, legacy is a piece, right? Because you've got these big shoes to fill.
Wow.
So let's talk to the people who are coming in second generation.
Right.
That's a challenge, that you are who you are, and you're not them. You're grateful for your father or your parent who you want to carry on the ministry, but you're not them. And so where it has great benefits, you still have to deal with not just the people's expectations, but then sometimes you have your own expectations, that you want to make sure that you're, honoring and carrying forth in the way you think they would want you to carry forth. And there's a lot of stuff going on the inside, not just the outside.
Yeah. So one slightly heavy thing before we get to some fun stuff to get you out of here. You've been so gracious with your time and insightful. Really appreciate this conversation. How do you process and think through your own legacy in relationship to, is there a retirement age? Is there like, hey, I'm going to do this till the wheels fall off? Have you been getting to process that at all?
Die in my boots. Yes. Everybody thinks about succession. At least you should. Even if you're not, older or at an age where you consider it. I'm praying about it. I'm praying through it. It is not something I don't have a date.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I can tell people that right now. I'm feeling good.
Right.
I finally got free off that other job to be able to devote the time to ministry. So I don't have that date on my calendar right now.
Yeah, I don't mean that from an immediacy standpoint, just as much as what does that look like as relates to where, like for me, I don't have any immediacy, but I do think through financially where I want to be,
Right.
where I want the church to be as it relates to debt, and also a little bit as it relates to how the next generation is being infused into the life of the church. For me, it's important that whoever, be it a sudden or be it 35 years from now, comes in, is being surrounded around individuals that's able to do like yourself, say, we're ready to go. Not, well, Rev did it this way.
Right.
And now you're handcuffed with this, the cliche of 5 to 7 years before you become pastor. And while I respect where that's coming from and the true reality of that, it sounds like in your case, and then even in my case, I didn't have to go through that because of the surrounding conglomerate that I was around there as a church. So that's what I meant by that. But you answered the question. So let's see how many things you can get right here. This is so important. I'm really pulling for you here on these questions. So grits. How do you take your grits? How do you use your grits?
I shouldn't have taken that water. That's funny. That is a definite debate. Savory.
Yeah.
No sugar.
No sugar, will it really? Wow, not starting off good. Boy, and I know you're a Christian, you read the Bible and things like that, so I apologize ahead for some of this stuff. But Godfather 1 or Godfather 2? Help her,
So
Jesus.
do I have to leave if I say that I didn't watch either?
I'm very disappointed. I am very disappointed. Let's do something here. Let's just do something. All right, let's do favorite legal movie. Favorite legal movie.
Okay. Let's see. Favorite legal movie.
You're a lawyer now. This is a lawyer.
I know. I have more like legal shows that I used to watch. I love The Practice.
We'll let you slide then. What's
Because
the
I'm more of a
shows?
TV show person, a movie person.
Okay.
I love The Practice back in the day. That was one of my favorites. I still love Blue Bloods because I worked, in law enforcement as a prosecutor. So.
Yeah, we got to come back, bring it back, and get more into that component. Good Times or Cosby Show?
Probably Cosby Show.
My goodness.
Although Good Times was probably, probably Cosby. You know what? I'm gonna declare Cosby Show.
You gonna declare it?
Yes.
Wow,
I had to think through it.
No, that's fine. That's fine.
I had to make a decision.
These things will be brought back up at another space and another time, but I won't do that here because you've been such a good guest. We're just gonna dive in. Let's get the last one. What's the last one, Ronald? What should we do here?
Oh,
you got another one for? I got one. Did you have one? I got one. Right. Prince or Michael Jackson?
Prince.
All right, let's be spiritual. C.L. Franklin or Jasper Williams? C.L. Franklin or Jasper Williams?
C.L. Franklin.
God is good. You got one. You got one.
I got one.
You got one. No disrespect to Jasper Williams.
Okay.
Be very clear. we dealing with the Don Dada here, and C.L. Franklin. Thank you so much for coming and sharing. Thank you all for listening. Please be on the lookout for more information about upcoming episodes and how you can be a partner to make sure that this space continues. God bless you, and thank you for tuning in.